HARK, we are here with part 3 of Regroup phase, covering morality aspects. This time, this video and next video, we're going to be covering the Villainy stuff that came out during, we'll call Villainy week, the week that I came back from vacation. Starting off with the FFG previews, got lots of fun stuff here. Next video will be the creator previews from that same period. Lots of cool stuff here. We should probably just jump right into it. So here we go. We're kicking off our FFG previews with an absolutely bonkers clone with an excellent weapon. Really cool card design here. Links to all of these cards in the description below. Check them out. I think I forget to say them in certain sections of the video. But here we go, right off the bat, we have Hevy, Staunch Martyr. This is a 4-cost aggression ground unit, 4 power, 4 health, Republic Clone Trooper, Coordinate Raid 2. When defeated, deal 1 damage to each enemy ground unit. This is an uncommon, 164 out of 257 in TWI. Aggression seems to have a lot of the obviously aggressive clones, but are things that are designed to do things regardless of where they are within the game itself. Whether it's on attack, when deployed, when defeated, they all do something fun, and a lot of them will have coordinate abilities that work together based upon the amount of clones that you're going to have on the board. So Hevy here is one of those things that even if your opponent defeats it, he's still going to do stuff with that Z6 blaster and just annihilate everything in his path. Really cool design here. I like this a lot. I like the fact that it is not necessarily heroism, which means if you are running a Villainy Republic deck or clone deck or something where Order 66 is your big power, which I'm sure is coming in this set, Hevy can help do some extra work with that and all your other clones that are going to be in your deck when you play that method. But otherwise, bang, 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 bang. Our first leader of this week of previews that I'm covering is a leader I've talked about before in terms of name, but now we get to see what she actually does. This is Padme Amidala, serving the Republic, our command heroism common leader with the Naboo Republican official traits. So we do get to see another Naboo traded unit or thing. Coordinates, action, pay 1 resource, exhaust your leader, search the top 3 cards of your deck for a Republic card, reveal it, and draw it. Put the other 2 at the bottom of your deck in any random order. As an epic action, she can flip on 5 into a 2/7. She is a common number 008 out of 257 in TWI. On her leader side, we know what she is. Command heroism 5/2/7, blah, blah, blah. She has restore 1 and she has coordinate on attack. Search the top 3 cards of your deck for a Republic card, reveal it, and draw it, and do the remaining stuff with the remaining cards. I'm going to be real. I think this leader is terrible. I wouldn't even use this leader in limited. Mainly because the restrictions on the card basically means she's a blank leader for the first 2-3 rounds of the game until you can get the ability to get those extra units. And unless you're putting extra clone trooper tokens or even battle droid tokens on the board round 2 to be able to use this round 3, you're still paying a resource to use her leader ability in addition to the restriction of coordinate. I like filtering. I think filtering should be better in this game than it actually is, but ultimately the amount of cards that we draw means that filtering isn't necessarily as strong as it could be. Flipping on 5 into a 2/7 is Krennic and Tarkin stats, but where they have relevant abilities that give your things extra damage while damaged, or are able to put tokens on Imperial units respectively based upon who they are, this is only restoring 1 and then searching the top 3 cards of your deck for a Republic card. You can stuff your entire deck with all Republic traded cards, and I still think this would be a terrible leader. I am disappointed. I'm hoping that a Padme Amidala unit is a lot better than this leader is. I just don't see it. I do see, however, Typho's goofy face here, which I love. It's incredible. This is not a complaint about the art. This is fantastic. Definitely the best part about this card. So our next rare base, less than 30 health, is a base that I like a lot of, but also makes me scratch my head a little bit. We have here Droid Manufactory. This is a 24 health command base that says when you deploy a leader, create 2 battle droid tokens. It's a rare number 22 out of 257 in TWI. This is another Geonosis thing. Both of the ones we've seen so far have been Geonosis, which is interesting. But the idea behind this is that you deploy a leader, you get 2 battle droid tokens. So with the leader we'll see later, that's going to be super handy right off the bat. But even without that, any leader you deploy is going to be giving you 2 battle droid tokens when you do it. And this is another one of those examples of where this effect is much stronger in Twin Suns. Sure, you have less base health. This might not be worth 6 health to do once, but it might be worth 6 health to do twice. And that's pretty interesting, especially if you're relying specifically on generating those battle droid tokens. Now, given that the cunning base was the +1 to your leaders, +1 power, and the command base is battle droid tokens, I wonder if either the aggression or the vigilance base might be a clone token generator, but if not, what's the benefit that the clones are going to get off those two bases? Is it going to be aggression in your build that you're going to want to be running is going to be command aggression, or is it going to be vigilance and the build you're going to want to run is command vigilance? Something for future me to discuss when we see that, but for right now, Droid Manufactory, it's actually a pretty neat card and one I definitely want to experiment with a little bit in the premiere format of Star Wars Unlimited. On September 11th, FFG brought to us the Villainy Aspect Preview, where we got to see a lot of cool cards from Twilight of the Republic that are themed more towards Villainy, a lot of Separatist cards, a lot of fun things that they're spicing up with the way that the Separatist faction / trait is going to play in Twilight of the Republic. There's a lot of really cool things here. Let's get started with probably the ugliest card we've seen so far, and that's not because the art is bad. We have here Wartime Trade Official, a 2-cost Vigilance Villainy ground unit, 1 power, 3 health, Separatist and official traits. When defeated, create a battle droid token. And this is a common, number 32 out of 257 in TWI. We're probably going to see a lot of effects that deal with when defeated do a thing with the Separatist side because they do rely on that exploit as often as they do. So this is really cool. We've already seen with the Battle Droid Escort that when played and when defeated, it creates a Battle Droid token. So it's a very good exploit target. This is another one that's a very good exploit target as well because it replaces itself in terms of what's defeated. You're not getting a bigger butt, much like Vigilance likes to do, but you are getting something that stays on the board so that way you can do something with it that turn in terms of exploit or potentially prepare for it to be able to do something in the next round if you have the ability to send all of those tokens out to be able to fight and do the things that they need to do. 2 cost is perfect because you can play this round 1 and exploit something harder in the next round to be able to do cool things with that. We'll talk about the same thing with another unit later on. War Trade Official mixed with Battle Droid Escort mixed with another card we'll see mixed with another card we'll see later on in the next video. There are so many things here that are doing cool things with Battle Droid tokens when defeated or just doing cool things when defeated in general. The exploit strategies are going to work very well for this strategy, and I really hope that a lot of that gets to see some cool play with Separatist decks. We've had first Magna Guard, but what about second Magna Guard? We have here Calculating Magna Guard. This is a 3-cost Vigilance Villainy ground unit, 3 power, 4 health, Separatist and Droid traits. When played and when a friendly unit is defeated, this unit gains Sentinel for the phase. This is an uncommon, number 33 out of 257 in TWI. If you're playing Vigilance Separatists, this is the perfect unit to have in your deck because it immediately gains Sentinel for the phase. You'll have it for at least 1 round, but with all the exploit shenanigans and things that you can use to defeat your own units, defeat your opponent's defeating your units, so on and so forth, this thing can get Sentinel pretty reliably every round that it's going to be on the board. So it is going to cause a problem for your opponent because it is a 3/4, so its health is much more difficult to get through than you would otherwise expect for a 3-cost unit. Exploit's going to make this guy really cool because you are defeating your units to get those extra exploited things out. So this is just going to Sentinel, 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 and your opponent's either going to have to return it back to your hand, which you can then just replay it if you have the resources, or kick it off the field and hope that you don't have another one lurking in the wings or another unit with Sentinel. If you combine this with Grievous, you don't necessarily want to give this unit Grievous, but you can give one of your other droid units that you're playing Sentinel, so that allows multiple opportunities of gaining Sentinel. You can play this first, next round, play a unit with Grievous's ability to give that Sentinel. Then when that dies, this gets Sentinel again, protecting your board from the different things. Or with another leader we'll see later on, you're giving a bunch of stuff exploit anyway that's going to be able to continuously proc this Sentinel. And that's pretty cool. Next up, we have a space unit that aids the droid strategies a lot and has a very fun action ability. We have here Magna Guard Wing Leader, a 3-cost command villainy space unit, 3 power, 4 health, Separatist vehicle and fighter traits. Action: attack with a droid traded unit, then attack with another droid traded unit. Use this ability only once each round. This is an uncommon, number 82 out of 257 in TWI. Normally when we see an effect like this, it's on an event that goes away or a unit that exhausts itself in order to be able to do this. What's really cool about this Wing Leader is that you can use this action the round it comes into play as long as you have the required droid units on the board. And I think that's really cool design space for something that allows you to potentially get use out of its abilities the round it comes into play, as opposed to having to wait and be like, is this actually going to be able to stick, or is my board going to stick when this comes into play for me to be able to use it on the next round. So I think this is design we hopefully are going to see a lot more of in the future. I know we've already seen the Republic clone officer that attacks with a Republic unit and sends +2 onto that, but I'm hoping maybe we can get something similar to this because this is a droid unit, not a separatist unit. So hopefully we could get something similar that does a clone unit for the heroism side. It doesn't even have to be command, but as long as it does something for clones, that'd be really cool. But otherwise, droids be winning. A lot of the stuff that we've seen so far with these cards, as I've said before, and I'll probably say again, droids be winning. Next up, we have another power boosting super tactical droid, but this one does it in a different way. We have here Kalani, Analytical General. This is a 6-cost command villainy ground unit, 5 power, 7 health, separatist droid. On attack, you may choose another unit. If you have the initiative, you may choose up to 2 other units instead. Give each chosen unit +2/+2 for this phase. This is rare, number 85 out of 257 in TWI. So on its basic first attack, no matter what other circumstances exist within the game, you're giving another one of your units +2/+2. That's pretty cool. Combine this with ECL, yada, yada, blah, blah. You can do all kinds of cool things, much like you could do with the Steadfast Battalion, blah, 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 blah. But if you have the initiative, you can do this to 2 units and be able to do a kind of tri-punch here, where Kalani punches in for 1 attack, your next unit punches in for another attack at +2/+2, and your third unit punches in for another attack at +2/+2, if those units can survive. Another interesting card that this kind of combines with is that on later turns, you can actually add to the damage that something like Overwhelming Barrage can do. If you attack with Kalani, give your units +2/+2, unless your opponent takes out both of those units, one of those units is going to have a power boost, which you can use Barrage to be able to clear more damage worth of units off the board. So lots of combo potential with Kalani. Not really meshing too much with specifically the battle droid tech, but it does mix very well with the exploiting units that are coming down that are already big bodies with big attack that Kalani can make even bigger when it attacks on that same round. So very interesting card, interesting design. I like it a lot. There's a lot of command villainy cards coming out for these separatist builds that are really neat and also kind of scary. We have another piece of art that we've seen before, and I was half right about what it was going to be. We have here the series officer, a 2-cost aggression villainy ground unit, 2 power, 1 health, separatist droid traits. When defeated, deal 2 damage to a base. This is a common, number 131 out of 257 in TWI. I thought this was going to be 9, but we do have 2 pieces of art that do feature OOM series officers. So we got just a generic officer. The next one might be 9 himself. But this is a really cool thing because you play it on your first round and then you get to exploit it in order to be able to play something much bigger on your next round, your second round, where you'll have 3 resources available to you, potentially more depending on what you're doing. But I like this design a lot because in addition to being just cheap exploit fodder, it does something when exploited. It deals 2 damage to your opponent's base. So you can accelerate this if you're running a specifically aggression villainy droid strategy, which does slot very well with the command aspect of being able to generate those battle droid tokens. But even if you're not generating the battle droid tokens and you're just using exploiters, this is a great unit to be able to exploit to get those big beefy units out without losing too much of your own board presence. And that's really cool. Next up, a bunch of droid fighters. We have here Squadron of Vultures, a 6-cost aggression villainy space unit, 5 power, 4 health, separatist droid vehicle fighter, exploit 3. This is a common, number 136 out of 257 in TWI. Squadron of Vultures is the droid fighter that you're looking for to be able to throw a big beater in space that can deal a bunch of damage. And realistically, you can play this for 0. All you got to do is sacrifice 3 units, and it brings its cost down by 6. You put it in play for free. That's just nuts. There really doesn't need to be anything more to say. If the exploit strategy, if you can keep those battle droid units on the board, is going to be explosive. And that's incredible. I think that's really cool for what it does. And the combination of things that you can do, you make your units cheaper so you can do other things with them. When it comes to playing them and utilizing that exploit, there's just so many cool pieces of combination that involves exploit tech that every time I see a card in the Separatist or Droid factions within what we've seen for Twilight Republic, I get more excited about playing droids when I am already wanting to just play clones. So, Squadron of Vultures, this card is great. Next up, we have just a regular tactical droid, not a super tactical droid. We have here Tactical Droid Commander, a 5-cost cunning villainy ground unit, 4 power, 4 health, Separatist droid traits, exploit 2, so you can drop this cost down to 1. When you play another Separatist unit, you may exhaust a unit that costs the same as or less than the played unit. This is an uncommon, number 184 out of 257 in TWI. This is your exhauster, which Cunning likes to do, but it is a relatively reliable exhauster because it itself can come down for 1 cost, which means you can use the rest of your resources that turn to play something bigger. Or if you end up having it on the board and you have a bigger exploited unit to be able to come out, something that costs, say, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, whatever the case may be, it is unit, but I threw 15 out there just in case we see a 15 cost Separatist unit. You get to be able to exhaust something that costs less than that, even if you aren't paying that cost to be able to put it out. These cost modifiers are very funky, but they provide a situation that allows you to do some very interesting things when it comes to the cards that you're playing and the units that you have on the board. We have seen a lot of Battle Droid applicators in terms of bringing out these tokens, but we're seeing right now so far more exploiters than things to exploit. So we're hitting that critical mass of too many things that are going to be able to exploit and potentially not enough things to exploit. So we'll have to see as we get further along down the set line what that is. We're still very early on. We haven't even seen half the set. I think we've seen about almost a quarter of the set. So we still have a lot of cards to go, but ultimately there's some funkiness coming up, and it's not funky in a bad way. So Tactical Droid Commander. Next up, we have one of the more enjoyable characters from the Clone Wars just because of how sassy and ridiculous he is. And I can't really explain it to you without you just going and watching it. So we'll talk about the card, and then you're going to go watch whatever episode he's tied to. We have here Zero the Hutt, Colorful Schemer. This is a 5-cost Cunning Villainy ground unit, 2 power, 8 health, big butt for the Hutt. Underworld Hutt. When played, for each opponent, you may exhaust a unit that player controls. And then on attack, for each opponent, you may exhaust a resource that player controls. This is an uncommon, number 185 out of 257 in TWI. It says he's a colorful schemer, but it really should say he's an annoying schemer because that's what this card does. When he comes into play, and in Twin Suns, it's even better proposition, you exhaust a unit for each player that controls units except yourself. On attack, again, for each opponent, bigger in Twin Suns, you can exhaust a resource that player controls and just mess with the things that your opponents are doing, which Cunning likes to do. Exhausting units, exhausting resources, returning units back to their hand, refreshing your own resources, bringing something in that your opponent wouldn't expect. Cunning likes to do all of that, and especially Cunning Villainy really likes to do that. Zero the Hutt, fun little jerk here, honestly. I don't know that this is going to see a lot of play, but someone's going to build one of those decks that's just designed to annoy the heck out of their opponent, which is the worst way to play a game. But this will be one of the primary cards to be able to do that because it's just cool. Your unit can't do that this turn. Cool. You're going to lose a resource at the beginning of the round this next turn. Oh, everybody does that on the Twin Suns board. That type of thing. So if I remember correctly, Zero the Hutt was the schemer that plotted to kidnap Jabba's son in the Clone Wars movie, and then he ends up being rescued by Cad Bane in season 2 or 3 of the Clone Wars series. So go check both of those out. My favorite Clone Wars character is Stinky, which is Rhoda the Hutt, Jabba the Hutt's son. And I know a bunch of people hate that character, but he's absolutely adorable for a Hutt. And just, it's incredible. I watched that in theaters. It was super fun. Zero the Hutt was sassy and crazy, and like Star Wars was real weird for a while, guys. I know it continues to stay weird, but it was real weird back then too. Next up, we have an event that's designed as a recovery style event for your Cunning decks. We have Wartime Profiteering. This is a 1-cost Cunning Villainy supply event. Look at the top cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of units that were defeated this phase. Draw 1 card and put the others on the bottom of your deck in a random order. This is an uncommon, number 188 out of 57 in TWI. So you can use this at the end of a round where a bunch of units have been defeated, whether you board wiped and killed everything, whether your opponent board wiped and killed all of your stuff, or you were able to annihilate a bunch of your opponent's units to be able to do things. This allows you to spend 1 resource at the end of the turn to be able to pull the top card of your deck based upon the number of cards that have been units that have been defeated that phase, and get the best card that's on the top of the deck. An interesting combo with this is if you have your resources available, you still have a bunch of units on the board, and you've cleared out your opponent's side, you could Wartime Profiteering to fish for Final Showdown, play Final Showdown, get all your stuff refreshed, and then attack for game, and hopefully you don't lose as a result of that, because Final Showdown says if you don't win, you lose. right? So that's just one combo you could potentially do with Wartime Profiteering. Ideally, what will end up happening with this card is you're just looking for another card that's going to help solidify your position, or potentially if you've lost your board, give you something to recover your board with, or to clap back with another board wipe on your own. Interesting ability here. We're going to see how good it is. I say that about a lot of cards. There's only so much foretelling I can do about how good or how bad a card is. I think this is actually genuinely middle of the road. Could be really good, could be busted in half, could be the worst. I think it'll probably land somewhere in the middle. Next up, coming by way of FFG Socials, link in the description below, we have a Cunning unit that's a Separatist unit that is absolutely a monster of a unit. We have here Rush Clovis, Banking Clan Scion, 4 cost, Cunning Villainy ground unit, 3 power, 5 health, Separatist official, raid 2, so it gets +2 on attack. And on attack, if the defending player controls no ready resources, create a battle droid token. This is a rare, number 183 out of 257 in TWI. A 4 cost 5/5 on attack is really good. A 4 cost 5/5 on attack that if your opponent doesn't have any ready resources creates you a 1/1 is even better. This card is nuts, especially for 4 costs where a lot of decks have trouble finding good costing 4 costs. Usually what'll happen on the 4 curve, you'll end up playing a 3 and a 1 or 2 2s, or a 3 and nothing, or a 2 and nothing, or a 1 and nothing if you're really unfortunate, or potentially using your leader ability if it costs resources. A lot of decks end up not skipping putting 4s in their deck, but end up having a lot of underwhelming 4s in their deck. This is not an underwhelming 4 cost card. This is an absolutely amazing 4 cost card. It'll be interesting to see how well this works with the Separatist strategy. If this ends up being just a really good card that ends up as in a bunch of good cards decks that feature Cunning cards, especially with that raid 2. Or if this sees a lot of play in something that wants to generate the battle droid tokens and is willing to let Rush wait until the end after the opponent has done things to be able to do its attack. And then, of course, in combination, if you're running a Cunning leader and ECL, this thing can come in, bash something, and if your opponent has no ready resources, create that droid token to fill its spot if Clovis himself ends up dying. It's a fantastic card, probably one of the best cards we've seen, and I'm very excited to see what people do with this in decks that deal with battle droids and Separatist stuff itself. We saw our first Command Heroism leader. I think it's time for our first Command Villainy leader. We have here Count Dooku, face of the Confederacy, and what a face it is. This is our Command Villainy common leader, Force, Separatist, and Sith traits. Action, exhaust this leader, play a Separatist card from your hand. It gains exploit 1, so you can just defeat one of your units to give the card you just played -2 cost. He flips on 7 into a 5/9. This is a common, number 5 out of 257 in TWI. He flips into our 7 cost 5/9, yada yada. Overwhelm, which is pretty good. You're attacking into units to be able to do some cool stuff. And then on attack, the next Separatist card you play this phase gets exploit 3. So you can defeat up to 3 units to give something in your hand that you're playing with this exploit 3, reduce cost by up to 6. So this is the droid strategy character, leader, whatever you want to say. This is the guy that's going to be utilizing all those tokens that you're generating in order to be able to get that massive influx of different things. You are already going to see a bunch of Separatist units with exploit, but because exploit is a stacking integer, it's an integer keyword, you're going to be able to stack this with any other form of exploit. So if you have something that costs a bunch, say the invasion of Christophasis, which already has exploit 4, theoretically Count Dooku could give it exploit 7 total, and then you could reduce the cost of that thing by 14 if you sacrifice 7 units. That's a lot. That's a kind of pie in the sky strategy. You are able to use other Separatist cards on both sides, the front, the leader side, and the unit side, to get that exploit to be able to get them out cheaper. And again, it does stack. So a 3 becomes a 4 with the front side, a 3 becomes a 6 with the back side. Dooku's a really neat unit, and with having that overwhelm, it means that he's going to be able to attack and delete units on your opponent's side of the board. If you can keep him healthy, there'll be some cool stuff that you can do with that. But I think maybe 2 or 3 attacks from this guy is going to set the game for you to be able to win without too much issue, so long as you're activating battle droid tokens and being able to get those on the board to utilize exploit to get those more expensive units onto the board. I'm kind of scared of Dooku. Even just seeing the small smattering of cards that we've seen so far, there's a lot of really nasty stuff Count Dooku can do. And as we talked a little bit before with that calculating Magna Guard, the exploit here is going to be able to allow that thing to keep gaining Sentinel, which is going to protect things like Dooku and your base. And it's just, there's a lot going on here. And I like a lot of it. I talked about this piece of art before, and sure enough, here it is again. fresh from FFG socials, link in the description below. I have the high ground, a 1-cost vigilance tactic event. Choose a friendly unit. Each enemy unit gets -4, -0 while attacking that unit this phase. This is a rare number 72 out of 257 in TWI. This is the fun meme. I have the high ground. Obi-Wan chops off a bunch of Anakin's limbs. Sad boy days for Anakin for the rest of his life. This is a very interesting card because at least it's one of those things that you can kind of easily get around this by just defeating the units in any way, shape, or form. But the cost of this is low enough that that might actually be worth doing. This combos very well with Leader Obi-Wan, who has Sentinel built in. You could do all different kinds of things. This might actually be a very interesting card in combination with something like Chirrut if you're running double vigilance and can give him Sentinel, or can give him Sentinel in any other way. Play a Sentinel, play I have the high ground, boom. Now everybody has to attack Chirrut, and because he can't be cleared with damage while the phase is active, you can end up stalling out the game a little bit longer than your opponent would otherwise prefer. This is an interesting card design. It's a rare, so you're going to see it enough because these are going to be easy enough to pull. I'll be interested to see how players work with this, but I don't know that this ends up being a highly rated or highly played card, but it will generate situations where your opponent has to push through the unit that you're attacking in order to be able to get rid of it, or use one of their resources to flip it back to hand. And if it's a leader, it ain't going anywhere other than just being Rival's Fall. So, but a Rival's Fall into whatever this is might not be the worst trade-off because you're only paying 1 for this event, plus whatever else the unit is, or your leader flip if it's a leader. So we'll see how this works in the future. It'll be interesting. I want to see people do cool things with this. And there you have it. That is a bunch of previews covered from FFG. Once again, links to all of these previews in the description below. I forgot to say it as I was recording and doing stuff, which I've said already, and I'll say it again because I say things on repeat a lot, and I know a bunch of you have noticed that. A lot of fun stuff. The Separatist decks are shaping up to be real nice. Still not very high on Grievous, but that Count Dooku, he blows everybody else away pretty much, unless you want to play Maul, a completely different strategy from the last set of previews. So it'll be interesting to see what other leaders come out to do fun Separatist stuff, but Count Dooku just starts that chain of decks right off at the highest high it can possibly reach. If anything is better than Dooku, it's going to be real sus and probably a Boba 1 situation again. But beyond all that, lots of fun stuff. As I said, I'm seeing a lot better stuff for the Separatists than I am the Republic. So hopefully over the next coming weeks, with the FFG previews and the creative previews that are going to be going over, at those periods of time, we'll see more clone generators, more cool clone things. But as it stands, the Separatist decks are real strong. They've got a lot of exploit targets. They've got a lot of exploit things that can exploit. They've got a lot of the different things that generate tokens and do things that you want them to do. I think the Separatists are riding a real high wave right now. And it'll be very interesting to see if that stays the way it does with the rest of the set, and they can be a fully complete themed deck that can be competitive, or if the Separatist stuff gets chopped up into good cards decks and gets spread out to every other deck that exists within the meta. So the future is interesting for Star Wars Unlimited, and as it ever is always unlimited. So thank you for joining me, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember to like and comment on this video. Let me know what your favorite preview from this batch of previews was, and potentially any of the ones you've seen already. Remember to subscribe to the Star Wars Unlimited channel for all of your Star Wars Unlimited needs. I'm tired, but I got another video to record, so I'm going to get to that, and I'll see you in the next one, and I will see you in the stars.